I am the most accident-prone person out there. There's a stage, there's water and a laptop. Who knows what could happen today? What I would love you to do, because I'm mic'd up like Madonna, feeling like a bit silly. So we kind of need to get the energy moving and warm people up, because I don't know about you. Anyone's hands freezing cold right now? Mine are. So what I would love you to do is raise your right hand in the air like you just don't care. Wave it around. Now you think you feel silly, you do. And what I want you to do is turn to one of your neighbours. You have actually got two. Turn to one of your neighbours, touch them on the shoulder. Go on, do it. Touch them. And say, "You rock." Love it. Now I want you to raise your left hand up in the air. Wave it around like you just don't care. And the other person you didn't look at, turn to them. Look them straight in the eyes. Say, "I didn't pick you, don't touch me." Good. Thank you very much. Now, what I want you to do so we keep those hands warm is raise your arm in the air, whichever one you want. We can do both if you want. If you would like to spend your time super wisely. Yeah, excellent. We're all on the same page. That's good. And keep your hand raised if you believe that time is your most valuable commodity. Yes. And keep it raised if you would too like to be a productivity ninja in your business. Excellent. We are all in the right room. My name's Faye Hollins from busybusinesswomen.biz, and it's an absolute pleasure to be able to spend this morning with you. So thank you for being here. Thank you for inviting me, Stephen and Megan. I've been to one of these events before and I loved it, so it's a real thrill to be here as a speaker, and hopefully I do you justice. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about me, but first up I also want to say I'm very passionate about what I do. I'm a little bit obsessed with time because that's why I'm here. I also get rather excited, and as Shaz knows, I have a tendency to overshare. I'm also English, I've got spiky blonde hair, and I'm pretty shocking at staying on time when I'm speaking. Is that all okay with you guys? Yeah, all right, just want to let you know what you're up for as soon as we get started. Okay, so you might have noticed I'm a fast talker. Rather than me saying, you know, I'm going to try the whole morning to slow down, I'd really like you to buckle up and listen fast. Everyone okay with that? Awesome. I'm really actually trying to slow down a bit now, but I find it so difficult. Okay, so buckle up. We've got a lot to cover, and I'm hoping to finish on time so that you can get to lunch and have some relaxing time in between sessions today. So I've been running small businesses now for 11 years. I've got two businesses, Outshine Consulting and busybusinesswomen.biz. But that's not where I started. So if we go back to my UK London days, I started out my career working for KPMG, and there was an accountant in the room, wasn't there? Where have you gone? Yes, hello. I'm sure most of you are familiar with KPMG. So I started off working at KPMG, and we had to bill our time in 15-minute increments. And if you imagine, you know, working a 10-hour day, we had to be 80% billable. So we had to be able to bill 8 of those 10 hours a day to clients. Now, I don't know what you think about that, but if you go back to your business and start, you know, let's say Monday, and you start working and think about making sure that 80% of your day can be billed out to clients, that's really bloody high, right? Would you agree? Yeah? Big nods, yeah? Okay, so that's where I started out. My background was in financial service and investment banking, and then I moved over to Australia and started my first business, and it hit 11 this year, which was an exciting, you know, another milestone to reach. I think every year in small business is a milestone worth celebrating. So my obsession with time started at KPMG, but that's not where it ended. I had a stint in the Royal Logistics Corps of the British Territorial Army, and if you know anything about the military, then you'll know that you don't waste anything, and you certainly don't waste time. So I'm a stickler for being on time. I actually was practically the first one here today at 8 o'clock, and that's the way I like it, okay? So I'm always on time, apart from when I run presentations. And so I did a stint in the British Territorial Army, and then I've got 2 young kids, a loopy dog, 2 businesses to manage, and a husband to manage too. So life gets busy, right? So some people don't like the word busy. My business is called Busy Business Women because I have this kind of, you know, passion around productive busyness. There's a difference between being productively busy and just busy and running around like a blue-ass fly. So that's a bit about my background. Yeah, that will do. So now, what I want to get started with right now is, why am I here today? So I'm going to be sharing with you some top time management tactics. Now, it was great, the intro that Steve did and the questions that he asked, because it got a bit of a flavour in the room of what you want to get out of today. And first up, I'm just going to let you know, I'm not going to be going through different pieces of technology you can use to manage your time. I'm going to go back to the good old days when it was pen and paper and give you some tactics that you can use to help run your business more productively and your life, because everything I talk about today is going to be applied to your life as well, without having to have a bucket load of new technology that you don't know how to use. Now, that technology can add to what we're talking about today, but let's keep time management simple, right? So let's talk about what can go wrong when you don't nail your time, when you haven't got this right. First up, you're probably going to feel really frustrated. You've probably got a big workload and you're not making the progress that you want in your business, so you're feeling frustrated. Anyone ever have that feeling at the end of a week or a day where you feel like you're pulling your hair out? You've been really busy, but you've not really got anywhere. Anyone felt like that? Yeah, we all have. I still have it too, right? So you're going to feel frustrated. That's going to lead to you starting to feel like you're overwhelmed. You're probably really passionate about your business. You really want to achieve your goals and objectives and run a business that booms. That's what I want to do, right? I want to run a business that booms. But if you start feeling frustrated and then you start feeling overwhelmed, you can start feeling like you're going to drown. And that doesn't make running your own business a lot of fun. It actually makes it easy to go back and work for someone else. And if you're feeling overwhelmed and frustrated, you're going to start to feel held back. And it can be that kind of imposter syndrome. You see like everybody else is progressing in their business and seemingly doing so well, and there you are still in the trenches struggling. The good thing is there's a lot of upside to when you get your time management right. First of all, you can have that really nice sense of calm that you're in control of your business. You know what you're doing, you know when you're going to do it, and you know how you're going to get to the end results that you want to achieve. You're going to feel focused. So you're going to be able to put those blinkers on and actually do the stuff that you need to do to kick those goals every week and every month. And that in turn is going to allow you to feel like you're progressing on a consistent basis. We don't want to have those, those highs and lows in business where we have an absolutely crackingly productive week, but then we crash and burn afterwards. We need the consistency so we can continually grow our business. So today I'm going to be talking through with you my top 10 time tactics to help you be more productive. I'm known with my clients as a productivity ninja, and I pretty like that title. So I want to impart some of that productivity magic on you today. Does that sound okay? Yeah. Now remember, I'm very passionate about what I do, but I also really crave interaction. So I'm letting you warm up right now, but I'm going to go for you if you're not going to play with me, okay? So I've got my eyes, and the great thing about a small room is I can see you all. Okay, so let's get started. Now, I've told you why I think time management is really important in your business, but let's look at what the stats say, because there's so many studies around time management. So time wasting. We all waste time, right? But we want to minimize that as much as possible. So there's been various studies done, and one of the key ones has shown that we waste generally business owners waste 1 hour a day due to poor productivity, so bad time management. Added up over the year, that equates to 6 weeks a year. Now, just imagine if I could give you 6 weeks extra in your year right now that you can go and play with. You can, I don't know, personally, I go to Bora Bora and have 6 weeks on holiday. If anyone wants to join me, that's fine. That's my dream. But 6 weeks a year is a bucket load of time, right? If you had 6 weeks extra a year to work on building your business and not just spending time in it, but working on it, do you think that would make a significant difference to your business? Yeah, 6 weeks is a lot. So we're wasting potentially 6 weeks a year. Microsoft conducted a study. They surveyed 38,000 people across 200 countries. And what they found is that despite those people being in their office, in their job, in their business 5 days a week, they were actually only productively using 60% of that time. So they were actually only productively using 3 days of their week. So imagine if you who works a 5-day week at the moment, if not more? 5-day week? Yeah, most of you. So your 5-day week, imagine suddenly being able to take every Thursday and Friday off. How nice would that be? Would anyone like to do that every single week? Yeah, that's not as many of you as I thought. Come on, interact with me. Yes, thank you. Okay, so there's one constant across all of these numbers. It doesn't matter how many studies we look at, there's one constant. And it's that we all have the same amount of time. It's what we do with it that makes the difference. So my job today and my passion is to help you use your time more wisely than you are right now, so that you walk out of here today feeling equipped with some really good time management tactics to help you also be a productivity ninja. Anyone want to leave the room yet? Are you all happy to be here? Yeah, awesome. Okay, so let's get going. So I'm going to share with you my top 10 time tactics. They're not all rocket science, okay? I'm not necessarily going to blow you away with something you haven't heard before. But what I found over 11 years of coaching business owners is that the majority of these tactics aren't done consistently. So for some of you, these pointers are going to be nice refreshers. Make sure you write some notes and go away and apply these consistently. And for others, these are going to be new tactics that you've just never thought of. Because I don't know about you, but I never went to time management school. I haven't come across anyone in the last 11 years that actually went to a school that was called Time Management School. Yeah, there are time management courses, right? But we're typically not taught these things. And then we go into our corporate careers or into our businesses, and we're just kind of expected to know this stuff. And we pick up some of it over time, but other stuff, we're just winging it every single day. And sometimes winging it doesn't cut the mustard. So, this is the least sexy of my steps, okay? Sorry to our accountant in the room. Are you an auditor? Were you an auditor? No, good. Okay, I can bag auditors out. Okay, there's nothing sexy about auditing, right? But the problem is with managing your time effectively is if you don't know where you're spending it to start with, you can't make smart choices with what you need to do to spend it more wisely. So the very, very first step in managing your time effectively is to audit your spending. And I'm going to take you through something called the 4 quadrants of time, which was put together by a very smart man called Stephen Covey, who wrote the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Has anyone read that book? Yeah. So this is going to be a refresher for you because you'd be familiar with this. It'll be interesting to see if you're applying the things that I'm going to talk about with the 4 quadrants of time, because often we read this stuff, and then I don't know about you, I read so many books and we don't actually apply it. Okay, so we need to make sure we know where we're spending our time. Self-awareness is the first step forward, so that's what we're going to do today. Now, in your lovely workbooks, there is a page in there that looks just like this. And if you can just turn to that page, I'm not sure what number it is, but it looks just like that. And it's a good place to write some notes. But I'm also going to get you to think about, as I talk you through these quadrants, where you're spending your time at the moment. And look to see if there are any habits and patterns of behaviour that you need to iron out to be able to spend your time more wisely. So 4 quadrants of time looks just like this. There are 4 quadrants, and they're all related to time. And I'm going to take you through those right now, okay? So first up, we've got quadrant number 1, which as you can see, it says manage. We need to manage this space. And it's red because this is the firefighting zone. So as you can see, it says important and urgent, and this is where you're dealing with things like short-term crisis and problems. So this can be quite an exciting space to work in because the adrenaline's pumping. You need a high level of energy to deal with tasks that are in quadrant 1. So for a short period of time, it can be fun to work in this space, or it's certainly exciting. But the key thing here is if you're spending a lot of time in quadrant 1, it's unsustainable because you need high levels of energy, and there's typically a high level of stress and high levels of anxiety to work in this space. So you are under the pump. It's often when there's tight deadlines, you're under pressure. So it's fun to work in from time to time, but you don't want to find that you're in this space all of the time. So the kind of tasks that end up in quadrant 1 might be a project that you've kind of been procrastinating over and suddenly there's a very impending deadline that you've got to meet, or it might be a task that's been delegated to you or given to you by a client, a staff member, your boss. Depends on kind of what scenario you're in business. So you might not necessarily have been able to control that deadline. You know, suddenly I give you a piece of work, I'm your boss, you've got to get it done by tomorrow. You're suddenly in quadrant 1, you're under stress and pressure and you've got to get it done. But there are also a lot of tasks that we can put ourselves into quadrant 1 of our own free will. And that can be quite confronting to realise that actually the pressure and stress that we're experiencing in our business is not driven by someone else's poor time management, but it's actually our own. So an example would be, for me, and feel free to, I should have said, no need to wait for Q&As here. Feel free to shout out at any point and share with me. We're a nice small group and can be super interactive. But I liked, as I said earlier about Shaz, I like to overshare. So full confession for me in managing tasks in quadrant 1 are, I love doing this kind of stuff, but I hate preparing the slides and prepping the content, right? So I do lots of speaking gigs, I run lots of webinars, lots of presentations, and typically they're booked months in advance, okay? So very rarely is there something where on a Monday somebody asks me to present something on a Friday and so I'm suddenly in quadrant 1 because I'm under the pump. Very rarely does that happen. And yet, regularly, I can find myself in quadrant 1 if I'm not careful, because I don't like elements of that job. So I don't like the slides, I don't like the prep, I like being here. So if I'm not careful, I can keep procrastinating over those tasks, and before I know it, I'm under pressure. And the stress is rising, because I know that I've got this important gig to be at, and I'm not prepared for it. Can anyone relate to that scenario in their business? Tell me, what's going on for you? Where do you throw yourself into quadrant 1? See, confession time is good, right? Good. Well, my aim is then, by the time I finish at lunchtime, is that you're going to have tactics to get you more quickly out of quadrant 1 and to be able to plan better so that you're not. Because it's probably a combination of your clients putting you there and yourself putting you there as well. And that's why we need to be brutally honest with ourselves. And so thank you so much for the confession. Feels good to offload, doesn't it? We've got to be brutally honest with ourselves, because quite regularly we're the ones putting ourselves in that space. But as humans, it's much easier to blame other people. So it's much easier to say that that client should have done something for me sooner, or they gave it to me late, as opposed to I didn't plan better, I didn't communicate like I should have done, and therefore I could have got myself out of that space. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the space we really want to be in, which is quadrant 2, and it's all about focus, okay? So quadrant 1 is about managing the work that's in that space and trying to get out of it quickly. In quadrant 2, we really want to spend as much time as we possibly can there. And that's about working on jobs that are important but not urgent. So this is a really nice, calm, collected space to work in, where we know what we're doing, we have time to do it, the levels of stress and anxiety are really low, and this is when work can be a lot of fun, can be really enjoyable. The problem with this quadrant, I call it the quadrant of luxury, because we've got time to play with, and because there's not an impending deadline or stress, it can be really easy to put tasks that fall into this space on the back burner. So take the example that I was just sharing with you. As I said, most of these kind of speaking gigs are booked months in advance. So I can be in quadrant 2 for the majority of my work, right? It makes sense, because I know months in advance that I've got to do something like this, and I can spend time up front preparing for it. But because I've got time to play with, it's easy to say, well, there's something else that's more important. There's something else that's got a shorter deadline, so I'm going to focus my time and attention on those tasks right now. Or, you know, a client asked me to do something, or asked for some help, or books in a last-minute session, and so I jump to those demands in my business because they have more pressing deadlines. And so that job that was in quadrant 2 gets put on the back burner, put on the back burner, put on the back burner. Until suddenly, what do you think happens? Exactly. All of a sudden, this thing. With quadrant 2, it's a really great space to be in, but if we're not careful and we don't plan our time appropriately, it's very easy to find that the jobs that we could have really enjoyed doing are suddenly in quadrant 1, and then we're in managing crisis mode, high levels of stress again. So we have to be really good time managers and good planners to spend more of our day in the space where we actually enjoy doing the work that we want to do and not pulling our hair out and fretting and having high levels of anxiety and stress all of the time. So quadrant 2 is the goal. That's where we want to be. And remember that, again, as humans, it's easy to blame other people for making those pieces of work end up in quadrant 1. But normally, it's actually our own actions that stop us from spending more time in quadrant 2 in that focus space. Okay, next up is quadrant 3. So this is the quadrant that we want to avoid being in. As it said, there's distractions and interruptions, and this is where work is urgent but not important. Now, urgent implies that there's a time-sensitive deadline, okay? But urgent doesn't mean that the work is important. And this is a challenge for a lot of people that end up in this space because of the sense of urgency, we can think or deceive ourselves into thinking that that work is actually important, whereas in fact the work is just urgent, and it's often because somebody else has given us something to do where they have that level of urgency. So an example would be if you've got a client that gives you a piece of work or asks you to do something where maybe their poor planning has meant you've not got long to deliver on that piece of work. Suddenly you're jumping to their level of urgency, but that work may not be important to you. Similarly, if you've got a boss and they pass a piece of work on to you, they might have a level of urgency about that work, but really in the great scheme of things for you, it's not an important task in your job. So wherever possible, you need to try and push back and say no to tasks that end up in quadrant 3. And that, as it says, these can be the distractions and interruptions that really get in the way of you doing the work that should be in quadrant 2. And it's I'll be talking about later on, the mission critical tasks that are actually important to build your business. So another example here would be like the phone ringing. I don't know about you, I was brought up to think, well, particularly in the corporate space, as soon as the phone rings, I need to answer it. But it's not necessarily important to me. It's not necessarily urgent to me. Of course, we don't know until we pick it up. But if we're not managing our time, we can suddenly become distracted by everybody else's sense of urgency. And that's where we need to be really careful with where we're spending our time and make really conscious, wise choices, because those interruptions and distractions can be very costly. And I'm going to talk you through specifically how costly they are to your business later on. And then lastly, we have quadrant 4, which is time-wasting activities you completely want to limit as much as possible. And these are tasks that are not important and not urgent. So this could be surfing the web, getting lost in your Facebook newsfeed. They can be tasks that you use to procrastinate over doing something that's way more important. We all know what they are to us. For me, this used to be one where in the early days of my business, I created my own website. I used to sit there flapping around with the website, changing colours and fonts and printing it up, and knowing full well that all I was doing was time wasting, but I could con myself into thinking that was actually being productive. Anyone else done that? What kind of tasks do you do that you full well know you're doing to procrastinate and flap around with? Oh my God, yes. It's like just jump onto Google and lose 3 hours, right? Yeah, I know exactly that one. What else? What else? The confession time again, time-wasting activities. Facebook's a big one for me. Anyone else? Facebook fiend? Oh. Yep. Yeah. And it makes you feel busy, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm not being a productivity Nazi about this. It's okay to do those things that you procrastinate, use as procrastination tools every now and again. And Friday afternoons, I think, is one of those where you're like, oh, I'm a bit burnt out, I'm a bit tired. I'm just going to do that stuff now because it makes me feel busy. But just be really mindful if you're spending a lot of time in quadrant 4, you want to get out of that as soon as possible. So what I want you to do now is just take a minute. I'm literally going to give you a minute, and I want you to write down where you spent your time this week. So write down what tasks have you worked on so far this week that have pushed you into quadrant 1. Where have you spent time in quadrant 2? What have you been up to with distractions and interruptions in quadrant 3? And what stuff have you been doing that you need to avoid in quadrant 4? Because I want you to be really aware of where you're wasting your own time. All right, so let's just have a very quick chat. What I'm really interested to know is, Where have you spent time in quadrant 1 this week? So just a little bit of a confession. Who's happy to share? What tasks have you done that have thrown you into quadrant 1 this week? Karen. Everything. Okay. Did you realise that before we did this? Have you realised you're in this high stress space? Yeah. You're moving. Okay. Yep. Okay. So when you think about the 4 quadrants, do you look at that and think, is there anything that you could have done ahead of time that you could have spent more time in quadrant 2 and focusing on that space, or is it all had to be in quadrant 1? Yep. There's probably those kind of tasks where, I mean, I don't think anyone actually loves moving, right? So it's very easy to put that stuff on the back burner. You've probably known that you've been moving for ages. So full confession, really, all of it could have been in quadrant 2. But hey, there's much more interesting things to think about. So I mean, that's an example where most of us would probably find it ending up in the firefighting zone and the adrenaline's pumping and we get through it and it's okay. But if that was a project or something you had to deliver on consistently in your business and not just a one-off, that would not be a fun space to be, right? Thank you. Anyone else happy to share? Yes. Oh, yes. Completely. Some good insights coming from you. Just as a sideline, because it just made me think, has anyone ever added something extra to their to-do list just so that they could put a line across it? Because I do that quite a lot, right? And I think that is a similar scenario with that sense of satisfaction that comes from ticking something off or putting a line through it, but also just getting the small stuff done because we feel like we're being productive. I'm going to talk about shortly mission critical tasks, and that's going to be a really important point for you because often those small things that make us feel productive actually aren't critical to the success of our business. And so we can focus on the small stuff and to the detriment of the bigger things that are actually going to get us to where we want to be. And then the bigger things end up in the firefighting zone, and then they don't become very much fun to do either because it's high stress, high pressure. So as you can see, the way to deal with these is obviously to manage the things that are in quadrant 1, to focus on the things that are in 2, avoid 3, and limit 4. 3 key things to think about when you're auditing your time is realise that you have the ability to make conscious choices around how you spend your time. So now you have the awareness of these 4 buckets of time where you can spend your most valuable asset. What choices are you making? Sometimes the choices are taken away from us, but honestly, the majority of the time, it is down to us, and it's how we make that conscious choice that determines how productive and how actually effective we are. What we want to do is make sure that we're looking to prevent tasks falling into quadrants 1, the firefighting zone, and quadrants 3, the distraction and interruption zone. So when you look and think, okay, I've spent time firefighting this week, you've got to think about what can I do to prevent that happening next time. So I know that my Achilles heel with speaking gigs and workshops and webinars is the prep up front. I love doing this stuff, but actually the preparation to get there is a thing I'll procrastinate over time and time again. And it is incredibly painful. If you've ever gone through this experience, it's incredibly painful to get to the point where you're, say, going to give a public presentation and it's 2 days beforehand and you've got nothing organised. That was not me today, by the way. I'd just like to confess that. But it's really painful. So sometimes we need that pain to push us. As humans, we do more out of the desire to avoid pain than to find pleasure. But you don't want to be going through pain consistently in your business to learn those lessons. So we want to look at prevention. And then we want to look at how can we maximise our time to spend more time in quadrant 2. And that really comes down to effective planning, and we're going to be talking about that today. So has anyone got any questions about the 4 quadrants of time or the sexiest step in my 10 today auditing spending? Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good call. I mean, I think of your question in terms of outsourcing for my business, and I know with Stephen, you've got the the ninjas, right? And you've got, is that right? You've got a team of people you can outsource to. Are you talking about along those lines? Yeah, I think it's there's a couple of different things there. I think it's looking at playing to your strengths and your aptitude and where you're trying to work in a space that's not your guru space. So if you're constantly trying to do work that really doesn't play to your strengths and you're not good at, that's where you want to recognise that you need to outsource that work so that you're not constantly in that firefighting zone trying to do stuff that really isn't where your guru space lies. And assessing how long that to-do list is and being smart with recognising that outsourcing will help move your business forward instead of feeling like a control freak that you've got to do everything yourself. And I say that purely from first-hand experience because in 11 years in business, I think I got my first VA and team of VAs 3 years ago. And it was the biggest mistake I made in business apart from not niching earlier. So sorry, I'm going off at a whole different tangents here. But in terms of productivity, definitely outsource sooner and play to your strengths and be in your guru space, because otherwise you're going to find that your guru space is in quadrant 1 firefighting all of the time and you're not going to produce your best work. Does that answer your question? Right, thank you. Any other questions? No? Please shout out at any time if you've got any questions. Okay, so let's move on because that's step number 1. And you're probably thinking, wow, she's not got all day. How's she going to get through another 9? I'm not sure either, but hey, I'm going to give it a really good try. Okay, so step number 2 is be effective. So we now know that you need to audit your spending and know that you're spending your time wisely. Step number 2 is then to be effective. And this is about distinguishing between whether you're being efficient or actually effective. And the two are very different things. You may have come across this gentleman, Peter Drucker. He said, effectiveness is the critical quality that distinguishes great achievers from everyone else. And that is because how you do something is infinitely less important than what you focus on. So it's much more important to focus on the tasks that are going to get you closer to your goals than it is to focus purely on efficiency and do them in the best way possible. Now, efficiency is always important, but when applied to effective tasks. If you are just working super efficiently, but you're working super efficiently on things that don't matter to your business, you're wasting time. So an example in my world would be, or in everyone's world, we're all on email, right? Is if you have a really elaborate email system and it's color-coded and you've got loads of files and you've got automation set up so it's coming into different places and you spend a lot of time moving emails around and organizing your email, unless you're a VA, for example, who's responsible for multiple people's inboxes, I challenge you to think that you're just being purely efficient and not effective. Now, the caveat to that is, obviously it's important for us to get back to our clients on time. It's important to be able to be on top of your inbox. But if you're spending a ridiculous amount of time having an amazing, elaborate email system, you're being efficient to the detriment of being effective in your business. Make sense? Anyone love elaborate email folders? Yeah. Sorry to crush you there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So it's not to say that suddenly you've got to have 10,000 emails in your inbox and not pay any attention to your emails. Of course, that would be ridiculous. But there's also the other extreme where you're over the top with it, right? And email is just one example. So this will give you the definitions of the differences between efficient and effective. So efficient is doing something in the most economical fashion possible, regardless of how important or unimportant it is. That's the distinguishing factor, right? It doesn't mean that you can be really efficient on unimportant tasks. And effective is doing the things that get you closer to your goals. So just to reiterate, it's great to be efficient, but be efficient with effective tasks that get you closer to where you want to be. Now, the common problem with this is when you think about being effective, it says doing the things that get you closer to your goals. the challenge for a lot of people is that they're actually not clear on their goals. You know, they say they want to make more money in their business, they say they want more clients, or they want to build a business that booms, or they want to love their career, or whatever it is, but their goals aren't specific enough. And so this is the biggest downfall I've found in terms of productivity and time management over the years, is that it's not your aptitude. You can be super smart and still be shocking at time management. It's actually the lack of clarity around the direction you're heading in your business or in your career, that actually hinders your productivity and time management, because it's near on impossible to be a productivity ninja and really spend your time wisely if you're not crystal clear on where you're heading. And this is the linchpin to it, because otherwise you can waste a lot of time being efficient and not actually effective. Does that make sense? Cool, okay. All right, so you've got to know what your key goals and objectives are in order to be able to plan your time wisely. Now, I'm sure you've probably done some of this stuff with Stephen before, but I'm going to get you to do a really short exercise today that's going to add some more wow factor to everything else that we're talking about today and put everything into perspective. So, as I said, you need to know what goals you want to achieve to avoid the confusion that comes with poor time management. If you don't know where you're heading, then you're not going to be able to manage your time well, and that's going to lead to a lot of confusion, maybe at a micro level on a daily basis, but also weekly, monthly, and annually around how you're going to get your business to where you want it to be. I want you to imagine this scenario, right? Because I think this is a little bit like going on a road trip. Does this scenario, does this picture look familiar to anyone? Because I feel like it's just a picture of my family, but with different people in it. Okay, imagine a road trip. Let's just say that we're going to take Monday and Tuesday off, and we're going to go on a really nice road trip. I don't know about you, but I'm freezing cold here today, so I'd like to probably go north, get a little bit of warmth going on. So we've got the option. We can just jump. We're all suddenly all going together. We're going to be in a minibus, right? And we're going to jump in the car, and it might be that we've got kids, and we're going to pack the kids in, pack the husband or the wife or your partner or your friends, throw some clothes in there, maybe some food. And you've got the option as to whether you just start driving north, head over the harbour bridge, and hope that things turn out well. Now, I was a backpacker when I first came to Australia and never left. Don't judge me. I do have a visa. But, you know, I never left. And it was really nice to just travel up the East Coast, and I've got like 6 months or a year to do it, and just take my time. I didn't need to do a lot of planning because I had time on my hands. But as business owners, we don't really have time on our hands. We've got 24 hours a day. We don't want to work all of those. We've got goals that we want to achieve. We've got places we want to be. So we can either waste our time and just hope we kind of get to a good place, or we can start planning that trip. And it's just the same as a road trip. So if we head over the harbour bridge and just hope that things turn out well, for a 4-day road trip, there's a lot of risk in that, particularly with kids in the car, right? I'm willing to bet that by the time I get to the harbour bridge, all hell's breaking loose, and I just want to turn around and go back home. And you might find a good motel or a hotel, and you might find somewhere nice to stay, and you might make it back in time on Tuesday to start your day on Wednesday, but things could go really south too, okay? Whereas the other option that the productivity ninjas like to pick is that you can go and book yourself an Airbnb. You can know the restaurant that you're going to go to. You can know where you want to be on which day. You can know what time you need to leave to avoid the traffic on Tuesday to get back on time. And there's all these different elements that you can put into place to make sure that your trip is as successful as possible. And that planning allows you to have a great time away. And the same goes for your business. When we plan ahead and we know where we want to get to and how we're going to get there, then we're much more likely to spend our time wisely and actually achieve the goals that we want to achieve in our business. And you're not going to get to the end of another financial year or the end of another calendar year and wonder where the hell your time went to and just feel like you're starting another year in the same place. It's like Groundhog Day. Okay. Anyone had that feeling where once they review their results for the year or a quarter, they're kind of not sure where the time went to? They had all this energy and these great plans, and they haven't really made much progress. Has anyone felt like that? I know I definitely have from time to time. Am I the only one in the room that's ever felt like that? Yeah, thank you. What's your name? I love you, Sinead. Thank you. So we really want to get to this point of bliss. We were like, yes, the sun's out. We've got an awesome planned journey. We're going to kill this and we're going to reach our goals and we're going to come back having had an amazing time. And I want you to feel the same about your business, but it takes planning. We need to make sure that we are being effective, and to do that, we need to know where we're going and how we're going to get there. Okay, so step number 2, time tactic number 2, is to make sure that you are being effective and therefore planning your trip and knowing exactly where you're going. So I want to get you to do a little exercise right now, which I nearly forgot about, which is the picture in your workbook. Karen, you're ahead of me, well done, which looks just like the one Karen's got in front of you. It looks like you're back at kindy. Okay, I'm a pretty visual person, so hence this kind of picture. What I want you to do now is I want you to imagine that you and I sit down in 4 months' time. So at the end of the year, it's Christmas, New Year's Eve, around about that time. And it's just you and me. And we crack open a lovely bottle of bubbly. And I sit down and I say to you, what are you really proud to tell me has happened in your business over the last 4 months? Hey, I saw you at Breakthrough to Business four months ago. What's happened since then? On your roadmap, at the very top, in the blue sky, I want you to write down as many bullet points that you can think of the things that you want to tell me you're proud has happened. So to give you some pointers here, I want you to think about what's going on in terms of your revenue or profit. What's going on in terms of the leads coming into your business, the number of prospects or conversions that you've got, the staff that you've got in your business, maybe the products or the services that you're launching or maybe reducing. What is it that you want to say you've done over the last 4 months? And don't hold back here. This is not a time to put the blinkers on. All I'm asking you is, what do you want, not how are you going to make that happen? Stephen's got all of the magic to help you make it happen. What we want to do now is get really focused on where we're heading on that road trip, because there's no way you can manage your time smartly if you don't know where you're going. So I'm going to give you about 5 minutes, but I'll probably cut that short to be frank, so speed along. Write down as many things that you can think of that you want to say you're proud you've achieved over the last 4 months. Let me just check in. Any questions or queries on that exercise before you get started? No? Okay, go for your life. Imagine that I'm your fairy godmother waving the magic wand and you can have anything you want. This is the time to write it down and don't hold back. Absolutely. If that is a goal of yours and you've been itching to have an awesome empty in tray and empty email, go for your life. So it can be real micro level tiny things, but it can also be, I want to make $1 million more in my business by December, or I want to have 50 new leads in my business every single week, and at the moment I've got 20. Like, try and get into the specifics and the quantifiables if you can. All right, so I just want to check in because I just gave you permission to write your Christmas list in your business. We want to up the accountability in the room, right? Because we all know that when we say those goals out loud, they're much more likely to happen. So I'm going to go around the room and I want at least one person from each table to tell me one of the big standout goals on their wish list that you and I are going to cheers to at the end of this year. So let's start over here. Who would like to tell me what's on their wish list? It's a cop-out. Yeah. Empty intro. Yeah. And we were talking about staffing, so have you thought about... Okay. Great. Have you got some numbers around those? How many you need? Yeah, good. Because just to add here, the specifics of your goals are really important when it comes to time management. Now, this isn't a goal-setting workshop, so I'm going to move on quite quickly from this exercise, but if we were to do this in a lot more detail, we'd be getting into the specifics, the quantifiables of those. And they become really important when it comes to managing your time effectively, because if we just say, I want to be more profitable by December, like how the hell do you manage your time around that? It's just like, we're going to talk about eating elephants later on, just like eating a big elephant. So you want to get into the detail. So the specifics you just gave there about one tech and what, 2 specific people are really important. So as we're going around the room, when you're writing yours down, make sure that you're trying to put some numbers, some quantifiables down there if you can. Okay, over to this lovely table over here. Who would like to tell me one of their big wants on their wish list? I'm totally looking at you. No, anything you want. Like if I'm your fairy godmother, what's one thing you'd love to nail at the end of that, end of the year? Okay. Great. Ding, there you go. It's as easy as that. Not quite. Thank you. Okay, over here, who would like to share? What's one of their big wishes? Thank you. Yeah, great. Love it. So you've got specifics around the numbers. And with the three big projects, are you clear on what those projects, what you want the projects to be? Or is it like a revenue size? How are you measuring that? Okay. Yep. Okay. So is it for you then the goal you want to have converted, like all three to be converted into paying clients? Yep. Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Good luck. Okay. What have we got down here? One person that wants to share their goal. Thank you. Oh, yes. So we're going to sack some people and we're going to bring some new ones on. Love it. Love that. Thank you. Okay. And last but not least, lovely ladies down here. Go on, Shaz. Hoping or it is going to happen? Gained. See, Shaz is probably a bit nervous because our kids are in kindy together and I see her in the schoolyard too. So she's got Steve on her back and then she's going to have me going, have you done it yet? Have you done it yet? That's awesome. Well done. Okay. All right. So now we're clear on where you want to head over the next 4 months, and we're crystal, you're starting to build your roadmap of being very clear on the goals that you want to achieve. It becomes a lot easier to manage your time really effectively around those things. But as we've heard, with some of the goals, they're big, right? Like they're not just a little task on a to-do list. They're actually big tasks that are going to take a lot of focus and attention to actually execute. So how, from a time management point of view, do you do that well and not just find that task, that thing that you've always wanted to achieve, ends up in quadrant 1, firefighting? Well, it's called Mission Critical. Has anyone read The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss? Yeah, what do you think? Do you remember? Because mine's yellow. It was a little while ago I read it, but a book that you loved. Did you take much from it? I've only read it 3 times. So fair to say you're a bit of a fan. Yeah, me too. Who else? Someone else put their hand up. Yep. Well, it's good. Yeah. Yeah, I don't have the answers to that either. For me, it's like one of those books that's got snippets that I take out and I really enjoy. And one of the things that I love is this, which I'm going to share with you. So if you haven't yet, I'd recommend having a read. Steve's also got a really good book at the back there that he tells me he's not flogging enough of, so you really should go and buy that one too. But so there's 2 books for your reading list. So step number 3 is mission critical. Now I want you to imagine, and this freaks me out if someone said this to me, if you were in the NASA command center and someone said to you, in 3 months' time you need to launch that rocket. I'm like, yeah, off I go. I'm just going to go and do that right now, easy. Imagine the number of tasks involved in a rocket launch. Is everyone in agreement with you that it would be pretty colossal to-do list? Yeah? Anyone up for the challenge? I'd like to see how it's done, right? I'd really like to watch it. The thing is that some of the tasks that you wrote on your roadmap might feel as equally colossal in your space. They might be projects or tasks, and particularly we're talking about a 4-month time frame, really short time frame, right? But you can apply that to your 12 months or 3 or 5 year vision, it doesn't matter. Those tasks can feel quite colossal. And so managing your time around really big tasks can become tricky because it feels like there's so many different moving elements that you need to be able to plan effectively around. So what I love about Tim Ferriss and the mission critical that he talks about in this book is that mission critical is all about focusing on tasks that are directly aligned with the goals that you want to achieve. Because we all know as business owners, life gets busy and suddenly we're doing all this other stuff that actually isn't getting us any closer to that roadmap. The reason that roadmap is a picture of a road, where's it gone, is because I want you to think about you've now got these key goals written up in the blue sky, but how are you going to get there? And it's about reverse engineering those steps and making sure that you're on track. We've got to know where you're going to do that in the first place, but then we've got to break down the bite-sized pieces and know what we need to do and when to make that happen. And if we're not careful, it's really easy to get sidetracked just by the busyness of everyday life and everyday business, and suddenly we're doing the stuff that's not getting us closer. And that's when we get to the end of a quarter or a month or a quarter or a year, and we've not really made a lot of progress in our business. So I want to talk to you about mind mapping right now so that we can get rid of some of those projects that might feel overwhelming and make them feel a lot more smaller and more manageable and more palatable. Is anyone a fan of mind mapping here? Yeah, I love it. Okay, I'm going to explain how to do it in a moment for those of you who might not have come across it. But I don't know how I've managed to get elephants and NASA Launchpad or Mission Critical into one presentation, but the way I like to think about Mission Critical is like eating elephants. Who's heard the analogy about eating elephants? Yeah, right. If there's a whacking great big elephant in the room right now and I said, I know we're coming up for a coffee break and you're totally sick of hearing me right now, but you are not going for coffee until you've eaten this elephant. I've actually had someone say to me before, Faye, is it cooked? Like, does it really matter? We're not going to be eating an elephant. It doesn't matter. But let's just say it's cooked, right? In order to eat the whacking great big elephant, what do we need to do? Start, yes. Yeah, teamwork's good. Yeah, because we're going to do it collectively, thank God. But it's the bite-sized pieces. We need the knife and fork and to break it down into bite-sized pieces. Now, from a time management point of view, the challenge comes for many business owners is that they look at that big project on their roadmap and they approach it like eating the elephant in its entirety. So they say that, I want to get 10 new clients by this month. And that might feel really overwhelming for them. So it's in the quadrant 2 focus section. It feels like it's a luxury quadrant because there's time to play with before now and Christmas. But suddenly it's a big task. They're not sure how they're going to do it. Or there's just a lot of work involved. And so it goes on the back burner. And before you know it, it's the middle of December. Everyone's in party mode. And you've not got anywhere closer to achieving that goal because the goal was like an elephant in the first place. So what we really need to do is make sure that you're breaking those goals down into bite-sized pieces of the elephant so that you can make them palatable and manageable and consistently make progress with the key things that are going to move your business forward and not just that day-to-day busyness that makes us feel like we've got a lot on but we're not actually being productive. So I'll give you an example of how this works, and then on your next worksheet in your workbook, I'm going to get you to do one too. So can someone just throw out one of their biggest goals on their roadmap that we're going to have a little play with here? So if anybody wants me to use them as their example, it would be a great time to let me know right now. One goal. Shaz, I'm looking at you. Don't you hate it when the speaker knows who you are? Okay. Hit me with it. Big goal on your roadmap. Focus on what's the one that you want to achieve the most? 6 new sponsors. All right. I should have been a doctor because my writing is appalling. So don't look at this and think that you're going to be able to read it, or certainly as I go. That's my best writing. So 6 new sponsors. So if you just sat down at your desk on Monday morning and went, right, 6 new sponsors, here we go. I don't know about you, but I could feel quite stuck in that space. Like, there's lots of different things that you need to do to get those 6 sponsors. So that's the elephant. We want to break it down into bite-sized pieces. And mind mapping, I find, is a really nice way to do this. So we just want to look at all of the different elements that are involved in making that project happen. So for you, we can do a working example as we're going along with Shaz. Please feel free to write yours out. It's the yellow dot on the worksheet in your workbooks. We're going to be mapping out the different bite-sized pieces that are required for you to plan around to get that project or that task executed. So Shaz, what kind of things do you need to do in no particular order to get 6 new sponsors in your business? Okay, so you've got a deliverable about that. That's good. So contact 3 per week. Now I'm thinking as soon as you do that, I'm going, okay, well, who are the 3, right? So how do you decide who to contact? Good. Okay. Yep. You're kind of in this holding pattern. Okay. All right, so let's just take a bit of a step back there, because what we want to do is we just want to make this easy for you to do, right? So we want the bite-sized pieces first of all. And this is where, I mean, this is a great example of where we can end up feeling like we're overcomplicating the task. And remember, this is all about the time management perspective of how to deal with this. So when Shaz sits down at a desk to do this, is she suddenly in this stuck holding pattern of going, gee, what do I do next? Or is she clear on what steps she needs to take every single day to move forward with this? And this is a great example, because you can see how you could suddenly become stuck and not move forward, and it all becomes a bit hard and a bit icky. And what was in quadrant 2 is now in quadrant 1, because you know that Steve's going to check if you achieved your goals or not, and you haven't, and you don't know what to do, and now it feels crap, and you're going to go and do something that makes you feel busy anyway. And you'll probably be on Google and surfing the internet and talking to me on Facebook, and suddenly the whole quarter has gone to pot. Yeah, I've done that too. Okay, so to contact 3 potential sponsors a week, what do you need to do to get the 3? How do you work out who to call, who to contact? Yep. Okay, good. So we're doing this really simply, not because anyone in this room needs it simply. Put simply, it's because to manage your time effectively, we need to break down the bite-sized pieces and make this super simple. So one of the things that Shaz can do is go through her contacts list. That's one bite-sized piece, right? Another bite-sized piece is LinkedIn. Go through that list. Then you're going to have one of the steps here is going to be identify possible people to call. Contacts, which is kind of the same as those 2 above. What else are you going to do to get 6 new sponsors? So we're going to do, this is calling, contacting them. What happens after? So we've identified the people that you're going to contact. You've got the people to contact and you're going to call them. What other elements do you need to throw into the mix to convert them into actual sponsors? So you've got emails that go out to them. And is email your first port of call to them? Well, no, you're calling them first and then emails? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so you've got your email sequence, and one of the things we were talking about before, and I said it was my second favourite F word, is follow-up, right? Follow-up is really, really important in your business, and if anyone is not following up on prospects in this room, make that an absolute priority from today, because it's just lucrative, it's gold in your business here. So follow-up has got to be a really crucial part of your process. It's the one that so many people miss out. And it gets missed out because people get busy and they don't have the bite-sized steps in the process, and they're just kind of running, blue-ass fly. And one of the things that can really convert into actual dollars in your bank is following up. But it's not done because people are busy, they're not focused on the bite-sized pieces. Is there anything else here to get those 6 new sponsors that you would do? Don't worry about order. Is there any other element of your process that you get involved in, or that you have to do? Mm-hmm. Yep. So I'll just put, yep. Yep. Exactly. Just because it's a no now doesn't mean it's a no forever. Okay. Yep. We've got into boxing now, haven't we? Yeah. Elephants boxing, NASA. Wow, we're doing well. Okay, just for the purpose of this, because I can talk to you after this, and I know Steve's your guru to help you do that, but just for the purpose of this exercise, do you see how suddenly, if Shaz puts down on her to-do list for Monday, find 6 new sponsors without anything else here, and she just sits down and says, you know, it's like me going, right, I need to find 6 new clients this week, and just looking at that on my to-do list, you can't possibly plan your time effectively around that, because there are many different things that every one of you have to do to achieve these bigger projects. So those goals that you've written down on your roadmap are significant to your business, and they all have different elements that are thrown into the mix for you to actually get those things done. Is everyone in agreement with that? Yeah? Because your goals on your to-do list shouldn't, your goals on your roadmap shouldn't be to-do list items. They're not like phone Faye or something, or return email to Faye. They're a bigger project or task. They're goals that you want to achieve in the year. And so you need to make sure that you're breaking those projects down into bite-sized pieces. So we've got 5 minutes left now. What I'm going to do is give you half of that because I'm super generous. And I would like you to map out the bite-sized pieces of one of the goals on your roadmap that if you could just have one thing in your business by Christmas, that would be the goal you'd focus on, okay? And you've got to get into the detail. So I'm going to come around and help you. If anyone's got any questions, just give me a shout. But get into the detail of the specific steps. And the way I like to think of this is if you delegated that task to me, that project, would there be enough detail on that mind map for me to know what steps I need to take? And I don't mean about training me to do it, but I just mean about looking at what steps I would need to take to get there, okay? And if there's not enough detail, then you've not broken the elephant down into enough bite-sized pieces. Okay, away you go. You've got 2.5 minutes. Productivity Ninja is on fire today. I'm going to be around during the break, obviously, so if anybody's got any questions, needs help with breaking down the elephant into bite-sized pieces, please let me know. I would love to help you. But so far, out of 10 top tactics, we've covered 3, which we've got a lot to do second half. So we know that we need to be auditing where we're spending our time, making sure that you're being effective and not just efficient, and making sure that you're prioritising your time around those mission-critical tasks that are actually going to help you grow your business. So that's part 1 done.
We're done. That's loud. Yeah. How about a big round of applause for Faye? Thank you.
Thank you.
So that was great.